All right, guys, it looks like we are live. Welcome to Jason Hebert Live. I am joined today by my co-host, the one and only Grotto, as you guys know well from if you're a fan of the channel. Grotto, you want to say hello?
Grotto says hello.
Grotto says hello, passing along the message.
Hi.
Feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we go over the story. I'll be bringing up our guest in just a moment. We do give just a moment for the chat to fill up as notifications go out. So as I do that, I do want to make an exciting announcement. So I am working with a group called Be United Missing Persons. You'll find them in the pinned comment below. We're two separate entities, just kind of agreeing, since we have the same goal of helping find missing people, to share the word about each other, and the more eyes on the stuff, the better. So let me just show you guys the flyer that they made for tonight's subject, who is Marshal Iwaasa. And this is Be United's flyer. Again, their links are below. And give me just a moment here. And I will, just a few things about Be United. Be United Missing Persons' primary focus is to help bring the lost and missing back to their families. Their website is www.b-united.org, and they strive to keep it as up to date as possible. Their group members believe that working as a team, they can pool their education and various talents to help families of the missing. And their group is 100% a volunteer, nonprofit, 501c3 public charity. If you're interested in volunteering, contact them on their website or find them on Facebook at Be United Missing Persons, which again will be linked below. So this is our subject tonight. His name is Marshal Iwaasa. We'll get into some of the specifics in just a moment, but let me just show you guys a few pictures. Some of the flyers here. This is Marshal with family and friends. Tonight we will be talking to Paige, his sister, as well as her husband, Dawson. Okay. So let's go into some of the specifics about Marshal. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so Marshal Iwaasa was last seen by his mother in Lethbridge, Alberta on Sunday, November 17, 2019. It is confirmed he was still in Lethbridge the following day at 8:30 a.m. on the north side industrial area between Shering and Churchill Industrial Park. However, aside from visiting a storage unit there, it is not known what else he was doing there. Marshal then left Lethbridge and was supposed to be returning to Calgary, but he never made it and was never seen or heard from again. About a week after he was last seen in Lethbridge, his truck was found at the end of a service road near the Waddington Hut Approach Trail, an area about a 14-hour drive from Lethbridge, which is about 18 to 20 kilometers from the main road. Of that distance, 13 kilometers is on a gravel road, and the other 5 to 6 are up a logging road that requires four-wheel drive. Not only was Marshal's truck not equipped for this trip, but his family believes he did not know of the location previously, and directions to get there are not accessible by Google Maps or GPS. He also is not known to have any friends in the area. Clothes were found around Marshal's burned truck, suggesting he may have been traveling for work. Along with the clothes was a computer that was confirmed to be his and an Xbox and PlayStation. As Marshal's Xbox and PlayStation are still in his home, it is not known if these ones belong to him at all. 3 old cell phones he had not used in years were also around the truck, but this was normal as Marshal tended to store his old phones inside of it. More items confirmed to not be Marshal's were found at the scene, but details on them cannot be released due to it being an active investigation. There has been no activity on Marshal's phone or bank account since his disappearance, and the family has no leads and desperately need your help. If you know something, anything, about Marshal's travels that day, why his truck would have been found on the trail, or any tips in relation to where he may be, please come forward. Tonight we have Paige, Marshal's sister, on this show to tell his story. Paige, I just want to say I'm sorry for what you're going through and let you know that you have the support of both me and my team, and you as well, Dawson.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely, it's my pleasure. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about Marshall and then lead into what we do know happened on the day he went missing.
For sure. So, I mean, me and Marshall grew up in a small town in southern Alberta, Lethbridge. That's where we spent most of our lives. And, you know, it was like a standard growing up. We were really close. We have a pretty big family that we're really close with. Recently, in the last couple of years, Marshall ended up getting into school in Calgary at SAIT. So that's about 2 hours north of Lethbridge. And so that's where he ended up relocating right before attending school at SAIT. So he ended up moving up to Calgary, kind of got his first solo apartment by himself, and started school. And, you know, things kind of went standard. You know, he had his normal student life, kind of adjusting to that. Me and my husband, we've lived out of Lethbridge for about the last 6 years now. We just recently relocated last month back to Lethbridge. And so we would come down usually every 6 months. 6 to 8 months, I would come down to Lethbridge or back to Canada and I'd visit my brother, or he would come up usually every Christmas to Hawaii. Our birthdays are about 7 days apart in December, so we would usually spend a lot of time together then over the Christmas and New Year's holidays. So we kept in quite frequent contact and we visit each other quite frequently, even since I've been gone. And, you know, everything was kind of normal. And he came down one evening, it was a Sunday evening, he came down to see our mom in Lethbridge. He told her he was going back up to Calgary. He needed to stop in our storage unit, and we can confirm that he was at this storage unit. We were able to confirm that.
Guys, did someone unmute? I'm hearing a double. Oh,
Nope.
Never mind.
Jason, I need you to mod my account, please.
Yeah, sorry, that was my mistake. Sorry, guys. Continue, Paige. I thought it was on your end. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, no problem. That wasn't us. But yeah, so he came down, he was supposed to go back up to Calgary. We saw that he was in our storage unit, and that's really the last trace of him. About a week later, on November 23rd, some hikers found his vehicle burnt out in Pemberton, BC, which is like 14 hours from Lethbridge, where we live. This is the area that my brother is not familiar with. We have really no ties to BC in that area. And it was completely torched. So the vehicle was severely burnt. The hikers that found it had reported it to RCMP, and I was contacted a couple days later and filed the missing persons report because we couldn't get a hold of my brother. I remember at first when I was contacted by RCMP, I had thought that my brother had like left his keys in his vehicle and someone stole it, drove it, and burnt it. And that we were just waiting for him to call and make the stolen vehicle report. And unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not what ended up happening. The vehicle was never reported stolen by him. And we've kind of been left for the last almost 9 months now looking for answers to his disappearance.
Okay. Did they say if they know how long before that the fire it started in the truck? Was it supposed to be instantly from when he disappeared or closer to when they found it? Because it wasn't found actually on fire, right?
No, that's correct. The hikers that found it, when I had asked them if it was still hot, like if they could feel any warmth after talking to investigators, they had said that they couldn't feel any warmth, like that they didn't notice it was still hot. So my understanding is if the vehicle had recently extinguished itself, it would still be quite warm.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is that to my knowledge, no fire investigator ever went up there back in November, back in December when they were doing their searches. And we don't know the specific time frame for when the fire was started. We can try and guess, and I know that the police did receive some tips, but we don't know the specific time frame of when the vehicle was burned. And there is amount of time from when he was last seen to when his truck was found that, you know, it could have been right away, it could have been later on, but unfortunately, because to my knowledge, no fire investigator ever went up during that time frame, we don't know. We recently had a final search done by the RCMP, Lethbridge Police, and our PI team. And at that time, a fire investigator went up from the RCMP. So we're still waiting on that fire investigation report. So that'll be good to have. However, it's quite late.
Okay.
And of course, people going through, I did drop the frequently asked questions in the chat because someone had asked about flyers. Mm-hmm. One thing you said that hikers had found the truck, obviously someone would have found it, right? And then things were moved by the time the police got up there. So Does it sound like maybe there had been traffic and someone could have just set the truck on fire after breaking into it? Is that a possibility?
So when the hikers found it, we were lucky in that they were kind of avid or amateur photographers, that they had really good pictures of the scene, and those were the pictures that they had sent to us as well as the police or RCMP when that had happened. Because of the location of like where it was, so we know the truck was burned, and we know all the items were in a specific spot on, when would have that been? November
23rd, when the hikers
November 23rd. So by the time the hikers got into service, called the RCMP, by the time the RCMP could even find the truck, that's another 2 days. And the RCMP pictures are different. So lots of things are moved. And it's not just like moved like a bear. It's cameras picked up. There's stuff that's smashed. It looks like there's water poured on the electronics. That's ice. All his identifying information is kind of piled into a corner. And that's something that we think is, very suspicious in the sense that like this isn't somebody just going and kicking stuff or a bear walking through. This is a very, it's a mystery. We don't really know what that means, but it's more than just wind, essentially.
Yeah, someone who's obviously up there active in that area.
Yeah,
I just wondered if perhaps he'd been led up there, removed from the area, and perhaps ruffians or people in the area had gotten to it and vandalized it and then lit it on fire. But obviously, no one really knows what happened, right? So
yeah, it's been something. We wrap our heads around it every day, and it's. We don't know. We don't know what happened.
Well, and the other interesting thing that I think is from the interviews of the hikers, they had mentioned like it felt really eerie up there. They felt like someone was watching them, and so they took some photos and got out as soon as they could. And then the discrepancy between those two photos, their photos and the RCMP photos, we don't know for certain what happens, but it makes me think that someone was up there moving stuff around.
Oh yeah, nothing says you're not welcome like a burnt truck and a bunch of personal belongings scattered on the ground. And kind of just going through because again, it was just such a great resource. The frequently asked questions, and also Jason had mentioned it. There were some things in the car, and you can't release all of the information, but some things that did not belong to him. Do we think that they may have indicated somebody may have been traveling with him, or he picked up somebody? Because he looks like a really nice guy, right? So maybe he picked up someone and given them a ride.
Yeah, I think from the beginning, every time I've had the opportunity to look through photos of the things that were found at the site, I've never had the opportunity to look through everything. But when I do have the opportunity, I'm always able to point out things that I don't believe are marshals, and we know there are things for certain that are not marshals. We haven't said specifically what those are, but we know for certain there are items up there that are not marshals. And for us, that either means that someone else was there, or someone else was there if Marshall was up there with him. And that kind of fits because ever since the beginning, once we started our Facebook group, Find Marshal Iwaasa, we had people from that area joining us. They were messaging us or writing on our pages saying, hey, the area that the truck was found is really remote. You can't just go up there. It's got to be someone that knows that area, that knows the location, that knows how to get up there. And we took that and we kind of molded over, and we used that to kind of keep pushing that, like, we don't think Marshall is there. But recently, we actually our family went up there with a group of 4x4. They offered to take us up there because we can't just drive up there with our own personal vehicles. We had a group of 4x4, a group that took us up there. They offered their services, and that really showed me how challenging it was to get up there. I remember times when we were driving, I felt so confident that my brother would not have taken his truck up there, that he wouldn't have known where to turn. There was spots where we were going where I thought it was the end of the road, or I didn't know if we were on a trail or not anymore. And for him not knowing that area, I don't believe he would have ever driven up there.
So this was like a logging road. It'd be like, and I'm in Washington, so we're pretty north too. And I spend a lot of time up in the woods whenever I can get up there. We call it DNR land. The Department of Natural Resources, where you can you'll be on what's a road, and then all of a sudden you think it's a road, and you basically proceed cautiously. It doesn't seem like he would have been able to get his truck up there. So do you think he was forced up there or just got lost?
I don't believe he got lost up there. I don't believe he drove his truck up there. And if by chance he was in the vehicle when it was going up there, I don't believe it would have been by choice or alone.
Yeah, and we know, like,
It would make
we know that there's other people's stuff there, right? So logically, you would assume somebody else is there as well. And we, like, it might seem like we kind of, for people that have just heard the story, it's new, but for people that have been following a long time, like, we've really been harping on this, like, there's items that aren't marshals. And part of the reason is that all police statements have always said there's no reason to believe that he was up there with anyone but himself, or there's no credible evidence that somebody else was there. It wasn't just Marshall. And that's frustrating because we know there is. And, you know, they know there is too. So that it's kind of like why we keep pushing it, is that, like, there clearly is other items up there. Logically, you would assume there's somebody else, either somebody else and not Marshall, or somebody else and Marshall, but not just Marshall.
Well, there's a lot more incentive to dump a vehicle up there than there is to drive it up there if you're being forced by someone, because he could have ditched it at any time going up there if it was that treacherous, and whoever was with or forcing him would have been
Exactly.
to just leave it there. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
I mean, there's other things, like we had noticed, you know, the steering column's gone. There's other pieces of the truck missing. So it really looks like somebody just stripped the truck to get rid of it. I mean, we found bolt cutters in the back that aren't Marshall's, like copper wire or whatever. Like, it just looked like it was being stripped. It was used for, like, taking other things and was just getting ditched. Yeah, I mean, Marshall went up there, left his truck, took his steering column out, and went for a hike. That doesn't make sense.
Okay. A few questions from the chat. Jake Knauer asks, do you guys know where he was headed when you last saw him? I know that you don't know specifically, but he says, do you have any idea? And are there any suspects that you have in mind, even if you don't name them?
We don't have any suspects in mind, to be honest. Like, we don't know. This is still a complete mystery to us. Like, even when I get asked, like, what do I think happened? I have no clue. At this point, we're just trying to look at the facts that we have and ruling theories out. So one theory was that he went on there on his own choice by himself to go hiking, to do whatever, or to do self-harm, commit suicide. And so we're ruling that out. We had an extensive search and there is no body up there. And our teams that went up there are very skilled. And we had a 8 to 10 dog team for cadaver dogs that went up there for about a week, and there was no body found. And they're very confident that had there been a body up there or anywhere on that area, that they would have found it. So we're kind of at this point where because it is such a mystery, we're just ruling things out.
Yeah, part of it too is, like, right now it doesn't even matter what happened. I just want to know where he is. Is he alive or is he dead? Right? Like, if he was murdered, okay, I can figure that out later. I just want to know if he's, like, where he is. So we've been trying, like, we've been spinning our head around, like, what could have happened. But I mean, and the biggest, like, right now, that's, like, the least of our worries is, like, what happened. It's like, where is Marshall? Like, what's the story behind it, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure.
The next chapter of it, you know, you've established what happened. Let's figure out and move on to the next part of this. Obviously. So just to share this, if anyone hasn't seen it, the first thing I did was check out their awesome group, and I clicked on the wrong thing. It's the Find Marshall page, and because I know I'll butcher it, can you pronounce his last name for us?
Find Marshal Iwaasa on Facebook. Iwaasa. I know it's a tricky spelling too for anyone that's looking. We can have someone throw it in the chat.
I got it already.
Yeah,
okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, while you're doing that, we have a question from Lisa Giambaluca. Is the area his truck was found known for any criminal activity or any dumping location?
So we're not super familiar with that area. Again, we have no ties to BC or that area, but we did have locals from that area come forward and message us or put things on our group once we started our Facebook page saying, like, it looks dumped. It's like, I mean, when we were going up there, we saw another vehicle that had been dumped and burnt at the same time.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Not on the same road, but on our drive going to that road. Yeah.
The other part too is,
yeah,
there's I think, like, in the area, not like in that exact area, but in BC in general, the amount of like missing persons and missing men is like unbelievably high. I think it's 2 times like the average. So like maybe not Pemberton itself, which we did see other like burnt out vehicles, but like BC and that whole area is just like a black box of missing people.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the Ryan Stuka case, but I don't believe that's too far from there. We interviewed his mother like a week and a half ago.
Yeah, from Sun Peaks.
Yeah.
There's been quite a few.
There's a few.
Even since I think part of it is because we're kind of in this world of missing people now. We notice it a lot more.
Right.
But it's insane. Every week there's somebody else missing from this area, or from BC or like close to there. And yeah, it's.
Well, even just like a few days after Marshal's disappearance, there's another man that is missing from about 30 minutes away, and he's still missing.
So where I'm at, again, I'm just going to mention because in case other people, where I'm at in Washington, we find a lot of burnt out vehicles, and it's often almost 100% of the time related to narcotics and drugs. Have you looked at the statistics for that type of crime in that area?
So I haven't personally looked at those statistics. However, I do know since I've started doing interviews, that has been something I've done interviews with people from Canada and the States. And that's been a common thing, is that you torch a vehicle when you're trying to hide evidence. And, that's what I've been told. And, that sucks, but that might be the case with my brother. And ultimately, in order to, what we want to do is have it criminally investigated, because right now it's just treated as a standard missing person. There isn't a criminal element at this point, or we haven't met that threshold to push it into a criminal case. And that's really what our family has been advocating for, and we're going to continue pushing for, because for us, this seems like a criminal case, and we might not be police officers, so we don't understand exactly what that gray area threshold is to make it criminal, whether that's like just a body or what. But for us, this is a criminal case, and this is extremely suspicious.
I mean, I could see how officers may not categorize it as homicide or anything beforehand, but the second you said there was missing parts from his vehicle, like it had been stripped, that's kind of common sense. So yeah, I see. Obviously you made the post for calling for it yesterday, Dawson. So I mean, obviously you're shaking your head because it's common sense to you too, right? Well, both of you. I don't understand. Have you guys had an opportunity to look at any recyclers for like copper, metals, anything like that on the way between, in case someone had taken his truck and used it?
The problem is by the time we were able to go back up to the site to see these things, because we were never told about them. We didn't find out about the missing pieces or the state in the vehicle until we got up there, which was at the end of June.
9 months later.
No, it was at the end of June. Eight? Yeah,
later.
so end of June. And by then, that's the problem with all of this stuff. All of that time has passed, so maybe they did recognize my brother, or maybe if maybe someone had dropped off things, parts from a vehicle that might have been suspicious. But now we're 8-9 months down the road, those people aren't going to remember. And they might even not have records or footage or anything at this point. Early in the investigation, our family made so many pleas to get video surveillance so we could at least pinpoint the last scene location from my brother. And we never received any confirmations. So I know that the spots were looked into, but we've never, ever seen any spots, any confirmation that he filled up gas anywhere, that he drove his vehicle. There was no, it's in the FAQs, but there's been no bank or phone records since the beginning of November, since a bit before my brother's vehicle was even found. And that vehicle would have needed to stop for gas at least a few times in order to get to Pemberton. So whether it was my brother driving or someone else, that vehicle stopped for gas.
Right. Okay. We do have a question from Dave Wilson, and it kind of goes in line with a question I was about to ask. I had read that nothing in the truck has been fingerprinted, I think they said. So I was going to ask you what you know in regards to that. But then Dave Wilson also says, were they able to obtain any DNA evidence from the scene of the truck or clothing items? So I figured I would put those in.
That's a really good question, and exactly what we have been asking for from the start. We wanted all the things fingerprinted. A hammer's moved, we want it fingerprinted. Things are broken, we want it fingerprinted. Items that aren't Marshal's, clearly fingerprinted. Burnt items, check if there's DNA. The problem is that if it's not criminal, why?
They're not checking.
You don't do that if it's not a criminal case. So they had saved the items, but they had also left them outside for a week before deciding to take them in, and then save the items in a way that they're supposed to be able to get fingerprints or get DNA at a later time if it's criminal. But at the same time, they're not investigating it as criminal. So unless we find a body, that's not going to happen. They also won't release it to us to get DNA tested ourselves, because if it becomes criminal, they want that, which makes sense if you're going to investigate it, but doesn't make sense if you're just going to leave it sitting in a storage unit. So yeah, great question. Super frustrating because no, they haven't done anything.
I mean, it really sounds like one of those shady companies where they have just a terms of service that is absolutely against you. They have all the opportunity and resources to pursue this, but they're not, because they don't want to be proven wrong.
I think part of it is that it's not illegal to go missing, right? So if Paige was abusive to me, I could disappear, right? And I could run away. And if she was asking the cops where I was, they couldn't give her that, right? So like part of it's that he's an adult and like he could disappear if he wanted to. The other part is like we're clearly past that. Like there's so much other suspicious stuff surrounding it. There's so much other things that like, and it's getting over that hurdle. And it sounds like it's seriously just like categorizing it as a major crime. They can do
arson.
They definitely can.
And pursue him.
Exactly. Yeah.
You charge him for arson. And
well, we need a fire investigator for him to be found, right? We need a fire investigator to tell us if it's arson. But if you're not going to send one up, how do you know what? Right?
One just went up in June, and the report has not been released. It's not been released, and I'm glad it was done, but like 8 months, pretty late.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, what are they supposed to say? Like, was it the truck must have been struck by lightning, which inexplicably moved all the items out of the truck at the same time? Sure doesn't look like arson. I mean, I personally, if I was investigating it and I'm like, hey, it might be a missing person, but he lit his car on fire and this is a forest, you living in Canada, you know how important wildlife is. I mean, hey, that's a firm excuse to start taking fingerprints and really anything. I mean,
that's what we got into it. Yeah. I mean, we all see TV and we all see how things are handled, but once you've been in this, it is like learning a whole new language. Like we are having to become experts in everything to be able to talk with the police, to talk with the investigators about this and articulate what we want done and why we want it done. But it is challenging.
Yeah.
It's so challenging.
I think too, importantly, like everyone will be, there's good cops and bad cops, or good apples, bad apples. That's not the case here. Like we don't think anybody investigating it is being like, we know they're trying their best. And even that, this is RCMP detachment in Pemberton and Lethbridge police that have both, in my opinion, dropped the ball so hard that it's ridiculous. But that's not a bad person thing. That's a training issue.
It's a systematic.
It's bureaucracy. That's what it is.
People not being good at investigating missing persons, and not like a single person, but RCMP police. It's just a bigger issue.
I mean, it's a failed system, and they often sit behind the veil of privacy and protecting people who do want to go missing on their own. I've only ever dealt personally with one missing person, and we found him in 2 weeks. And I'm saying personal, not like anything related to the fine people I've had a chance to speak with. But it was my nephew went missing on his own volition, and I think we found him in like 2 weeks. In every department that I reached out to, and mind you, I even reached out to the one department I personally had a very negative experience with. But as soon as I said what was going on, each one of them, they were checking traffic cams, they checked bridge cameras, they checked everything. And I didn't have 10% of the support or resources or initiative to do what you guys have done. And we found them in 2 weeks. And I don't understand that a department, no one in the department is like, hey, this seems kind of fishy. I should do this on my own, or even look at it. Just take a day or anything. Like you said, it seems like kind of a failed system. and training, it's got to be training. To me, it's got to be training. If everyone is in that same position in a department to where they're like, we can just put this on a shelf and let it sit until someone else does the work for us and brings an update, and suddenly we need to investigate a homicide. I can't process that. We see people prosecuted for the stupidest things. A man is doing life in Louisiana right now for stealing a weed whacker. Why can't they charge him for arson?
I mean, it definitely comes down to like a training thing. Like, there's no excuse for items to be left out in the snow for a week. Like even if you think it's just a missing person, like, that's evidence. You got to collect it. There's no reason for like things not to be looked at, or
not to know the source of the fire.
Yeah, not to know the source of the fire. There's no reason for that.
And the thing too is, like, when the truck was found, the weather was okay, so they continued to do searches. I remember asking the lead person when the truck was found, like, could he have survived? Because at first I was worried about hypothermia, and he had said, well, it'd be cold, but he'd be okay. And so there is no reason why, like, in my opinion, that they couldn't have got a fire investigator up there to determine the source. What happened? How did this fire start? A lot of speculation is what I got of, oh, well, it might have been this. Oh, well, it might have been this. But at this point, we don't have a concrete answer, and that's what we're waiting for. And, thankfully, we started a GoFundMe on our Find Marshal Iwaasa page, and we had a ton of support. We also had another business in our small town that offered to kind of help us fundraise. And so we were able to hire a PI team. They organized this final search that happened. They brought in a whole bunch of resources. And we were able to find more information and have a fire investigator go up there on our behalf, in addition to the one that went up from LPS. But we have not heard anything about the LPS report, or the RCMP who completed the fire investigation report that went up at the end of June. And so we're over a month now, and they don't have a cause of the fire yet.
Lightning, and it took everything out of the truck and neatly placed it, and
some wild
lightning moved everything
around, like all kinds of different ideas. But no, that was completely sarcasm. I know what is.
I want to make sure.
There's been some weird things thrown out there. I know in the recent press release that was done, the reason why we ended up releasing those photos publicly is because Lethbridge police had done a press release that had brought up there was photos where the items were moved, and we received a lot of questions about that. So we ended up just posting it publicly. But in the press release, it had kind of discredited it, saying, oh, maybe hikers went through and moved these items. But once we posted the pictures publicly, you can see very clearly, it's not just some hiker came through and like kicked something over. Like, things are moved, they're missing, they are damaged.
You mentioned piled personal items, identifying items have been piled neatly. Things have been kind of moved with purpose. So, and if it was someone just going there to steal it, they would have put it all together in like a bag and then taken it. I mean, sure, it's out in the middle of nowhere, but if you're in that area, someone had maybe seen it, or if you'd heard about it and you're a local in town, be like, oh, missing truck with a bunch of stuff, they would have been in and out. There wouldn't have been any real organizing. So that's very suspicious to me.
Amanda of the Rowdy Crafters asks if hiking was something he did or was into, or was it rare?
Nope. My brother was definitely an outdoor person. I think the caveat to that is all of his hikes were either done with friends or family. So, we lived in Hawaii, and he would come visit us, and we would do lots of hikes there. It's beautiful. And my brother is very active and very fit. So he was able to do some quite challenging hikes over there. And so I've seen him hike. We've hiked in the States where we would camp as kids, and we've hiked in Alberta. And the biggest thing that I think is important to note is that he always went with friends or family. He never went alone. And all of this stuff was either with us in Hawaii, in Montana, with where our family camps, and in Alberta. We are not familiar with BC. That's not an area that we go hiking frequently. So he is very fit and definitely could have hiked, but that's not the case.
Yeah, he's a capable hiker and being an outdoors person. He's very capable that way. But he's never been to that area, an area that you need a GPS or that you can't get to with GPS. He also, in the storage unit that he was last seen in, is all his camping gear. So nothing's missing. His tent's not gone. His cooler's not gone. There's all the stuff in the storage unit for camping and hiking are still there. And when you look at the stuff that's found there, that's not any of his stuff to indicate he was going camping or hiking. So he definitely is an outdoors person, but I'm 100% positive he wasn't there to hike.
And the other important thing that you brought up earlier is you don't go hiking and take your steering column.
Yeah.
And if he was hiking up in that area, he wouldn't have driven that far in. He would have done it on foot.
Yeah, you wouldn't have driven your own truck there. You can, I mean, I've seen in the photos that it damaged the truck, and he's not going to go and destroy his truck so he had that truck. He was quite young when he bought it, and he just paid it off. Like, he had worked really hard to pay off that truck himself. He owned that himself. He's not going to go up there and damage his truck and then light it on fire. Like, he's not going to wreck his truck to get up to that point. He's just not going to do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Noticed a couple of one of the articles mentioned that, and I'm just going to say it because people may bring it up. Said that he may have had some troubles leading up to this. Did he drop out of school, or he just decided not to attend for that year? Wasn't enrolled?
So what we know, like, we had been under the impression when Marshall went missing that he was still enrolled at state going to school, but then when it came to light that he didn't enroll in September, so he wasn't attending school. And so for us, like, he's an adult. What I chop that up to is, like, yeah, he might not have been ready to tell me, and that's okay. Like, he is a full adult. If he wasn't ready to tell his sister that he decided not to go to school, that's his choice. And I do think at one point he had been, like, last summer when we were down, we went hiking with him and camping. We were together for about 2.5 weeks, just doing various activities through Alberta with our family. And I know at one point he had talked to me about school and had said, oh, like, for my field, it's a little bit different than yours. You don't need the degree. It's really based on who you know and your experience and what you can produce. So he was going to school for computer technology.
Definitely. Yeah. You can get a degree from that online too while you're working.
Mm-hmm. And so I had been like, well, I mean, I don't know about your field, but, like, maybe it's good to have, but, like, do whatever. And so maybe he just wasn't ready to tell me.
Yeah. IT is ever changing. Technology. I mean, I love IT. It's kind of like my thing. So I can tell you right now, if I personally had the choice between going to a brick and mortar school and learning IT, what you learn there, you'll already be needing to learn new things by the time you graduate. When you start year one, by year 4, half the stuff in year 1 and maybe most of or a good chunk of stuff in year 2 may not even be relevant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so I understand it.
I think too we've got this question a lot, and, like, we're open to everything. There's no bad question. Our feelings aren't going to be hurt. But this is always, like, a caveat into, is it suicide? Is he depressed? Has there been changes? Could this be self-harm? And I think you can look at anyone, you can pick out pieces from anyone and, like, make it look depressed. But we've ruled out that he went up to that site for self-harm. That's no longer a question. So now that is a valid point. He, like, dropped out of school or didn't enroll. He could have been stressed out, but that point is always leading up to a self-harm. Like, that's leading up to, could it be self-harm? And we've spent the last 9 months where it's like, okay, this is no longer a thing. He didn't go up there for self-harm. That vehicle was up there. You don't take your steering wheel column out to kill yourself. You don't strip a vehicle. You don't drive that far to somewhere you don't know. And if you did, we would have found a body. We've had multiple searches with, like, the last search was so extensive that, like, there's no way we can be more confident that there's not. Could there be? I mean, there's always that we missed something, but we can't be more confident that there's not right now.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing too is, like, I want to say this, like, publicly, like, depression does not always lead to suicide. If someone is depressed, it does not mean they are going to commit suicide. So could Marshall have been depressed? Yeah. Lots of people get depressed at different times in their lives when they go through different changes, especially not being sure what you're going to do. As a young adult, you're trying to figure out your life and what you're going to do. And you can be depressed, and that's okay. People are depressed and they go get therapy. Some people don't do anything. Some people go get medication. All of those are options, and everyone's different and their needs are different. But being depressed does not mean you are for sure going to go commit suicide. No. And I think, could he have been depressed? For sure. Could anyone be depressed? Yeah, look at my life now. Like, we're stressed all the time about this. Doesn't mean we're going to go kill ourselves. No. Like, it's okay to talk about these things, and mental health shouldn't be something that we're bundling up and hiding against talking about. It's something we've openly thought about and talked about as a family. And, we have also sought out clinical opinions about what this could be. Would this be suicide? Like, what are your thoughts about this? we've thought about it all the time and talked about it very openly. And it's not something that we're scared about talking about.
Yeah, again, if that's the answer, as long as we know, like that's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad fact, but like it's the closure and knowing. And the problem is like we've really, at least to us, we've ruled out this
Yes.
self-harm thing. But I mean, totally valid question for people asking.
Okay. We do have a question from Be United missing person. Excuse me. Is there a missing person clearinghouse for the Lethbridge, Alberta area? And if there is Marshall listed on it? And have you added him to NAMUS as well?
So I'm not sure what a
I've never
missing
heard of
persons clearinghouse is, but we've, from what we've been informed from the Lethbridge police who have charge of this case, is Marshall has been added to every single missing persons database that they have access to. They've added his DNA, they've added his photos, they've added his information. I mean, my brother had very distinct tattoos. I provided photos and descriptions of all of those to Lethbridge police. So his name and his information is flagged across Canada.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if there is a missing persons clearinghouse. But that's something that we can, like, if you guys have information about that, we'll go through and read the chat after. If you could throw something in, if there is other places, because we are always trying to push and increase awareness of my brother's disappearance. We know there's lots of people out there that don't know my brother's missing, that don't know what he looks like, and so we are trying to take every avenue we can to increase awareness.
And as you mentioned, the more time that goes on, the less opportunities there'll be to get that information, because information obviously gets wiped. People throw away cell phones from pictures they may have taken. Gas stations only keep data for so much, for so long. Sorry, I got to put in the other headphone. So I kind of saw that sense of urgency in there, and obviously, people come in, and I think the most important thing is making sure that people from that area, especially if it sounds like it's kind of a hot spot for that type of crime, really need to check every business that has cameras, or people's dash cams from that time, anything really.
Yeah, and I mean that was our hugest push in the beginning. Like, I would still love if someone just happened to have 9-month-old video surveillance from their house, but most of the businesses that we checked, they keep it for like a couple weeks or a month or like 3 months max. So if someone has footage or they think they have photos, for sure send them over to us. We'll review them. Like, anything will be helpful. It's sad to say, but like, I don't know how much footage we're going to get at this point. So that's why we just keep trying to push awareness, trying to keep pushing his photo. Maybe someone saw something that stuck out to them, or who knows what, but we are just continuing to try and keep pushing awareness. And that's where we've been so lucky. Like, through social media, we're able to get in contact with people like you guys, or different podcasts or different shows. And, we always take every opportunity we can to keep spreading awareness and growing our group, because that's really how we push out new updates, new information. It's my family and I and us that run the group. So when people ask questions on there, it's us that they're communicating with.
And that would be the best place to send you guys any tips or information, is that group, which is linked below, as well as the police department, of course, which we will give the phone number to at the end.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you.
Sure. And that is the only page that you want to receive information, or did you want anything on your personal page, or does it not matter? Just so people know.
I mean, if people are more comfortable sending one of the admins a direct message, that's fine. We're all listed as admins. And so they can reach out to any person who's listed as an admin and send them a message. Or our Facebook group is like really how we communicate and try and keep everyone in the loop. So joining our page is always helpful. So you can kind of get updates, or you can ping up questions. If you think of anything, you can post them on to us and we'll definitely answer them.
Okay. Tammy Spang recommends do NAMUS. They will also ask to take your DNA. That way you won't have to keep checking morgues.
So Marshall's, our family's DNA has been taken and has been put into a database, so that if a body is found, Lethbridge police are able to check. Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, that's something that at the beginning I was really scared about. We used to get people sending us messages of different bodies that were found. And it was always difficult to have to reach back out to the police and say, hey, like, I got this. Is there a chance that this is my brother? But we have now put all of our DNA in those databases. The other thing about my brother is he has very distinct tattoos. Like, he has chest tattoos, he has back or shoulder tattoos, arm like tattoos, and his side. and they're very specific. And so those also help with us. I don't know if we have a poster that has all of his tattoos listed, but that will be our next step, is to have a poster or missing persons flyer that has his tattoos as a feature, because those will stay. People can change their hair, they can look different, they can gain weight, lose weight, shave their face, tan, but your tattoos, his are very distinct and they will stay.
I'm checking all the posters.
This
right
one's
now.
pretty good here, the picture I have on screen.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's got, like, on his chest, he has a couple tattoos, his arm has a couple tattoos, and then down his side, he has another pretty big one. So that will be the next project for us, is to make one of just his tattoos so people can recognize them.
I would definitely, that's because I just pulled up one, and he's definitely got quite a lot of tattoos.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a full sleeve or a half sleeve.
It's up to his elbow. Yeah, it's all the way around. And they're pretty unique. They're pretty unique tattoos.
They're unique, definitely.
Okay. I did want to mention, this isn't so much a question, but this was something I saw mentioned in the FAQs, and I thought it was a good idea, so I want to put it out there for anyone listening, that they recommend, if you work in outdoor labor jobs in the area, such as rigging, construction, or power lines, please ask someone you know, possibly a supervisor in that field, if Marshall recently applied for a job or was hired and didn't show up.
Yeah, that would be awesome if that kind of like awareness, especially now it's harder to like remember if you saw somebody. So things like that, those kind of questions are very good questions that I think are still feasible to have maybe answered now. That would be very helpful from the public for us. Yeah. Even there's also some items that have not been located that they're on the FAQ, and as well, if you're working outdoor jobs, those are things that you might come across thinking maybe garbage, but that would be, could be a game changer to us. And not to keep beating the RCMP down, but there was a logging crew that was working to clear those roads that lead up to the truck that they never told Marshall was missing, or items were still missing up there. So we don't know. Those items might have just got dug up and buried from this logging or this crew that was digging out the roads. Again, it's just frustrating when that kind of evidence might be lost. So for sure, if you work outdoors, that'd be an awesome thing that if you could just take a look at the items that are still missing. There's like a laptop, some beer one,
a backpack.
there's also like a contact solution that would clearly just look like garbage to normal people, but to us, if we see that, that would mean a big thing, because his contacts and his contacts glasses, that was never found, and those are things that he would need to have. His last phone was never found. His most recent phone, his most recent computer, his wallet, all of that stuff hasn't been found. And if anybody does find that or come across it, those would be big things for us to find out.
Okay. And someone's asking if anyone has ran any license plates to check if the vehicle got a parking ticket in the towns between the two locations. Is that something that need to be handled if it was a criminal investigation?
They did do something there was an application that the police could do that essentially pulled all your vehicle data. If you got speeding tickets, if you got photo radar, essentially anything with the license plate, and it was clean. There was nothing from his truck on that. So that was something that was done by the police early on.
And just so everyone is clear, the 4 items in the FAQ that were listed is his most recent cell phone, and I'm just mentioning it because I was wrong. I said that his cell phone was found in his truck. It was not. His most recent cell phone was a Samsung Galaxy S6 pearl color, a Mountain Hardwear Scrambler 30 backpack, a SAIT issued Samsung laptop, and his wallet. It's a Nixon wallet with a screen spot for the license, we believe.
Yeah, and there was other phones, so that might be where the confusion comes, is that there was other phones found there
that are linked to Marshall.
Yeah, and these are, for some people when they first heard about it, it was, there's 3 cell phones and passports, and that is like drug related or sketchy. Those cell phones were just like, Marshall was known to keep his cell phones, his old ones, in his truck, the same as the passport. That being said, like, we're not, like, we have a complete open mind with what could have happened. We're not naive. Marshall, we would be with Marshall for 2 or 3 weeks. He clearly wasn't a drug addict. That's not to say that you didn't like get into trouble or anything. We're open to anything.
At this point, anything is possible.
But those phones are accounted for. They are Marshall's, but they're not anything out of the ordinary. Same with his passport. That isn't weird to us that was found. It's weird that it wasn't burnt, and that it was pulled out of the trucks and then piled up in a pile later on. That's weird, but that he physically had them there in his truck. So if somebody stole his truck, they would clearly be in there.
They would have all that stuff.
Yeah.
With the laptop being issued, it was issued from his school, I believe, right? Has anyone tracked that laptop down? Or, I mean, obviously may not, if someone did, may not have any info, but have they tried?
They've tried to look for if he pawned anything. And we know across, I think it was like Alberta and BC, or Alberta and Saskatchewan and BC, that he has not pawned anything. Because we're thinking, oh, maybe like he had it and like if someone got it or it was found and someone sold it or pawned it. But we can't track, like from my knowledge, we can't track that laptop unless it like logs on and hooks up to something. Okay. But we haven't had much communication with SAFE, to be honest. A lot of that has to be through the police. And in the beginning, I'm my brother's listed emergency contact for school. And I had tried calling to talk about his school, to like just talk to them. And I was told no one will release any information to me. So I understand at this point, I think they've been they've communicated with the police a little bit more, but to my knowledge, I don't know if they've ever tracked the computer, but it has never been found.
Okay. You had mentioned him going to school for the IT and all that. So I think it said in the FAQ, so he was previously enrolled at SAIT, but not currently. Is that correct? Do you want to go over where that is and a little bit more details on just the school?
Yeah, so he had been enrolled in school, and we found out, we were under the impression that he was still in school, and once he went missing, we did find out that he wasn't re-enrolled come September. He hadn't talked to us about it or told us, but like I said earlier, I mean, he's an adult. If he wasn't ready to tell me, I mean, we both have gone to school. We know it's challenging. I've thought about dropping out many times in my master's, and I get it. And if he just wasn't ready to tell his family that he changed his mind, that's okay.
Yeah, so we know that he finished 1 year out of a 2-year program at SAIT. So he finished 1 year for I believe it was software engineering, development. Yeah. So he finished the first year of that and then didn't go back that September. So we had seen him over the summer. It was the last time we saw him. Then he didn't go back in that September. November is when he went missing. So yeah, but we were under the impression that he was still in school.
Okay.
Yep, and you mentioned he'd when the school thing was brought up earlier that he just talked about school and that he could pursue it career-wise, the education career-wise, instead of through traditional brick and mortar. So
yeah, and he wasn't just out of high school, right? He worked full time for it would have been 5 years, maybe 4 years. So him not going back to school, that wouldn't have surprised me if he was just like, I don't like this. I'd rather have money. Like I'm used to working. I'm just gonna go back to work. Like that wouldn't have surprised me. But it's also not surprising if he didn't feel comfortable talking to us about it yet either.
He's just trying to figure it out. Yeah.
I know how I felt when I dropped out. So
Carla Knight says, I know there was some talk about using a medium and or psychic. I know it's a touchy subject, but would you use another one again? Because I would be interested in doing some volunteer time or work with you. So I guess she's a medium or psychic, offering her services.
I mean, personally, I'm not closed off to it. We've had people reach out to us and say, hey, here's what I'm gifted in this. Here's what I think. But at this point, what I'm really looking for is that those things that we can bring to the police that are concrete evidence. So did someone see him? Do we have a photo of him? Had someone heard something about him? Anything like that. I would never turn away any help and support. So people are, I definitely know that that's happened before where people have reached out to mediums and they've done their predictions. We've had a few different conflicting predictions or various ones. But really what I'm looking for is something that can help us give evidence to the police of where we're at and give us concrete evidence of where Marshall's at now.
And we've had a couple of people ask different questions about resources and have you checked this camera and this or that. In the beginning, it was covered that a lot of these resources aren't being utilized because he's identified as a missing person right now, not as a homicide case. So certain cameras, getting access to businesses' cameras, a lot of that isn't an open avenue right now because the RCMP is treating it as a missing persons case and not as a homicide case.
Yeah, so Lethbridge, I mean, the police can ask, like we've been told that they can ask, but it would be up to the discretion of the business unless they have a warrant. And right now with this missing persons case, it just being treated by Lethbridge Police as a standard missing persons case and not a criminal case. They don't have access to all of that at this point from our knowledge.
Yeah, they had a few. I think they got access to maybe the highway cameras or something, which you couldn't, it ended up being you like couldn't see anything. It was too grainy. But so they've tried a few things, but at the same time, like we know that vehicle got gassed a few times on the way out there. We know that there's video. I mean, not anymore, but there was a time when we knew that there was multiple, because he would have had to go, or the truck would have had to stop multiple times, gas, and that was never looked at. I think RCMP looked at 3 gas stations and then never told us anything about it anyways.
We were told, I was told that there was nothing.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
three gas stations, and that's
in the area of Pemberton. The other hard part with this is like, we've never seen which route that truck might have taken. There are so many different routes to get from Lethbridge or Calgary, Alberta, all the way to BC. It's a 14-hour drive. You can deviate so many different times on that and go different routes. And so, I mean, at the beginning, that's why we were just pleading online publicly all the time. Like, please, if you're a business or if you work at a gas station, please check your footage. Please talk to your manager, save your footage, anything, submit it to police, anything. Because we know that there's so many endless ways to get there. It's so hard to track down every gas station on those 55 different routes or different deviations that you could have taken to get to that exact spot, right? Like you could have, like for us, so our family recently went there, and because of weather conditions, it took us 30 hours. So one of the roads was closed in both directions, the only highway to get there. So we had to take a different route. We had to backtrack about 6 hours. We were stuck in one with a ferry for 4 hours. And then we ended up making it there. And on our way back, a different road was closed, both directions. So we had to actually loop around past Vancouver and go all the way down. And so we ended up taking like all the different routes to get there, but it was so long. And it's, there's all these different gas stations you could have stopped at. To be honest, I feel like it's near impossible if like an investigator or a single person like myself was trying to call all those different routes and those different gas stations to ask them for footage. But what I do think is possible is through all the support we had, even in the beginning from the public, is getting places to check or getting places to, save their footage. And we did have places that reached out to us and said they checked their footage, they didn't see anything. And that's as far as it got. So at this point, we have never seen any concrete proof or video footage that my brother drove that truck, was in Pemberton, drove to Pemberton, anything like that.
Or bank brick, like he
There's
never
no
bought,
bank statements.
never bought gas. It just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to think like that he would have drove up there and like all of a sudden changed all his habits, used cash, drove on water, I don't know, and then did whatever up there. It just seems way more realistic that he was either not there, somebody else was there and paying. That seems like the most realistic thing that could have.
The most logical.
Yeah, the most logical is that he wasn't up there, not on his own board.
I mean, there's so many different possibilities. He could have even, kind of touchy to say, but he could have even been carjacked by somebody who was trying to find a way to get to where the truck was flying the city. That's how my car was stolen. Someone needed a way to get up, 2 hours north, and they were like, "Oh, I'll take that car and use that." And we found it 2 weeks later. So there's so many different possibilities.
That would make sense, right? Like his stuff was rifled through. In the pictures you see, it's like thrown around. Is that thrown around, or is that looking for valuable stuff? And then same thing, like to get there, you need to know that area. You need to know it, or you really have to work for it. So like, who's to say, like, yeah, that would make sense to me. This truck gets stolen and it's driven up there by somebody that knows what's up there. On the way there, they're stealing a bunch of stuff with their whatever bolt cutters and all the stuff in the back, stripping the truck. Like, it's crazy because it just makes so much sense, and that's not something that's been pushed for suicide for so long.
Well, and another thing that I don't know if I know our people that are part of our Facebook group had mentioned this early on, is there's actually a couple that was found, one person from Alberta, one person from BC. They had been stealing vehicles. They had stolen a van, taken police on a goose chase up a different Forest Service road, and were apprehended eventually. And so we had asked right away, like, hey, like we had people reaching out to us saying, hey, this is happening. How did these guys get here? Did they steal someone's truck? They obviously know the area. Or like, did they steal your brother's from? And so we had reached out to police and RCMP right away saying, hey, this was brought to our attention. Are these connected? Do you know for certain they're not connected? Or what are your thoughts about it? And it was kind of told to us like, no, they're not connected. And that was the end of it. But even now, we still have people saying like, hey, they would have needed to get here. How did they get here if they were stealing vehicles? Because they stole a van in Pemberton. And Pemberton is a small town. And so we again reached out and we were told that they're not connected.
Based on like what though? I mean,
we're not privy to that information all the time. I mean, I know.
Do they understand what an MO is? So.
Yeah. I mean, I understand with police there are certain things that we don't have access to, and I can respect that. But we just want to know what's being worked on, that things are being done, that, you know, we're moving forward with my brother's investigation into his disappearance and not just looking for if he hiked by himself there and burnt his own vehicle or if he chose to drive up there and take his own life.
Oh.
I know, I feel the same way. Just
yeah,
like,
and again, we would be fine. Like, of course, we wouldn't be fine, but like, it would be okay if that was the case. It's just that like we've eliminated that, and now we need to move forward. Like, we need to
just need to know where he is. Everything else, like, who cares, right?
We just want to know. And at this point, that's why we're pushing so hard for it to be taken into a criminal case, because we have ruled out those two things that are by choice: suicide by choice or driving up there by choice. And those things did not happen on that road. There is no body there. And we are very confident of that. So that's why we're pushing so hard now, moving forward, for this to be taken as a criminal case.
This to me sounds like it's going to be a lot like Jerry Michael Williams' case, where his wife offed him but blamed it on the alligators, even though alligators wouldn't have eaten anything during the wintertime. Someone's going to come along in 6 years, hope not, pray not, and it's going to be like some common sense thing, and the police will be like, oh yeah, that's right, and it'll get solved. But I mean, it's so sad that in the digital age, and especially where you can track criminals better now than ever, that
again,
dropping the ball.
There's no excuse for us to be in this position. And again, it's not blaming specifically Lethbridge Police or RCMP, because this is like a problem with investigating missing person cases. But that being said, no excuse. These are public servants. We pay for them to be investigators. They need to investigate. We should not have to hire a PI team. These people on our Facebook group have donated. Now this is essentially the second time. They've paid for taxes for the police to do this, and now they have to donate so we can hire a PI team to do it. And that's not okay. That's something that like nobody should be okay with. And people in Lethbridge should be upset. This is a kid from Lethbridge. People from other places should be upset because this is a police RCMP problem. This is an issue that we shouldn't have to do. We shouldn't have to be experts.
We're not alone. We have, since my brother has become missing, we have had so many other families reach out to us. Like, there's been, I think, a few other cases in BC area that the family members have come forward, reached out to us, and at the beginning give their advice of working with police, their experience. And we are so fortunate. I've said this, I cannot say it enough. We are so fortunate to have such support from both my family and from the public that we've been able to keep pushing this. We have so much coverage and exposure. I see lots of other missing people's cases that they just fizzle out. Like, they're missing and then there's nothing else, or they have a group and it kind of dwindles down, and that's so sad. And I can't imagine being one single person, like being by myself and having to run this group, push for my brother's stuff, and still like figure out my life and how I'm going to deal with this. We have 9 admins on our page that are my family members that help me run this, and it's still challenging for all of us. And it takes so much work, and something needs to change. This isn't fair to families that are going through this. And once my brother's case is over, our family's committed to making changes and helping better the system for other families, because it's not okay. And we're just very fortunate that we have the people resources, the financial resources, and we've hired a good PI team that has helped us push this case forward, because I feel very confidently that it would have been closed down.
Oh.
And just another missing person who went up to kill themselves or got lost and died.
Doesn't sound like it was opened up at all, really, honestly. For it to be closed down. And you guys mentioned hiring the private eye on your. I think it's the FAQ. You mentioned the estimate is about 5 to 15,000. Is that right?
We've surpassed that already because
that's why I was asking.
Yeah, that was low. I mean, we were guessing. We had no clue what we were doing, and
we didn't think it was going to be 9 months.
We didn't think it'd be this long. And one thing too is that maybe if we were just hiring the PIs to just investigate, we'd maybe be in that budget range now. Mm-hmm. However, they ended up organizing the search. The second search that took place at the end of June, they organized it. They got in a whole bunch of other teams to come in. They got search and rescue, Wings of Mercy. They have lots of people come in and help search. And that's how we're so confident that there's no bodies up there, is that they did that. It was time. It was a lot of resources and a lot of money. I don't know. I never knew prior to this how much it costs to put on a search and to get people up there, specialized people that are well trained up there. It costs a chunk of change. Yeah. And that's why we're so fortunate that I don't think I could bankroll that myself. But we had so much support at the beginning. We had a GoFundMe. It was set up. We still have it up. We're going to try and do something else to do fundraising because,
I'll put a link to that too at the bottom.
Oh, thank you. Because, we're not done. We don't have answers and we won't stop until we have them. And, it's sad that this is where we're at. We never thought it would be where we were at, but it is what it is. And this is where we are. So we're making the best of where we are and making sure that we do justice for my brother and make sure that answers are found.
Yeah. And we got even just lucky with our PI team. These are a group of unbelievable people that are working and they're very committed to just helping us. We could not, when it cost, it was for that search was 15,000 just for that search. You would never put on a search for even close to that because they were so good at getting all the volunteers to come up, getting everything. That's unbelievably cheap for the search that happened. But that's gone. And now you look at families that don't have that resource, that aren't able to have that, that fundraiser, the money, they don't get a search. That doesn't happen then. And that's not okay. It's just that. We're happy that there's so much around fortunate. Us and support, but it's sad because other people don't. And a loved one is a loved one, right? There's no difference between Marshall and any other missing person. And it sucks that other people have to do this without the support that we have.
Absolutely. And on that note, we do have some of the previous people that I have interviewed on the channel in the chat showing you support right now. One being Tammy Spang, whose daughter Ashley was found safe 2 days ago. And we have George Weeks as well, whose son Jacob went missing in Colorado. And he wanted you to know that we need people like you. Change. What he's referring to is, how you're helping others and getting involved in cases. George does that on Facebook. So I'll make sure to pass you guys info to each other so you can, he stays in touch with a lot of families dealing with the same type of stuff. So he just wanted to give you a thumbs up and let you know.
Oh, thank you. I was so surprised. We honestly would not be where we are with our Facebook group had other people that had missing loved ones stepped up and helped us. We had no clue what we were doing, but they showed up out of nowhere and helped us grow this group, figure out what to do, figure out how to strategically plan, how to talk to the police, how to work together. And we would have been lost without them. And I knew that's what they do. We had asked them about why do you do this? How do you have time for this? And they're retired or they're volunteering, and that's just what they do because they want to help other people.
Yeah, it's not fun, and we're so thankful for everyone, but at the same time, it just makes me so upset that we need people to come and help us that much, because we shouldn't. This should be. They should have better protocols. They should have better investigations and solve these cases. But at the same time, unbelievably thankful for everybody that's helped because we would not be here at all without that. It just sucks that we need that to be where we're at.
And we have so much public support. It's amazing. And, the next push that we're going to try and do too is just reassessing and pushing out more flyers, more awareness. I know, COVID was here, everything kind of changed. Now we're starting to be able to go outside a little bit more. We're really asking that people take the time if they can and put up posters I know that we have all different posters, and we're going to make another one that are available on our Facebook groups to download. Here locally, like in Alberta, I think Alberta, kind of more in Canada, we've been sending out posters when we can. We've been sending out bumper stickers when we can. We had a business locally here in Lethbridge that donated a bunch of posters, so we were able to have some really nice ones printed off that we could send off and give to people that don't have printers. I think that's been so helpful, and that's going to be our next push, really, is to keep that awareness up, having people help us by sharing, if they're on groups on Facebook, sharing our page to their group, sharing Marshal's poster, Marshal's information to their groups, because it would be so impossible for me to go and join all the thousands of groups that are out there in all the different provinces. But through the help of social media and the help of and support of the people that are on our group, they've been able to share so many times. And we're really asking again with the summer, please reshare. Please check up the spots you put up posters, and even more if you have time. If you're going on a road trip on Canada or anywhere, like, please put up posters if you have time or available. Just kind of keeping up that awareness, because we could not do this alone. Like, hands down, we could not. And
I mean, we just tapped out for a few days, like, to just go and take a break. And luckily we have other people to that we can do that, because if we couldn't, if it was just us, it'd be I couldn't even imagine.
It'd consume you.
Yeah, it's not fair. Like, I really strongly believe there needs to be some changes to help families and support them better when this happens, because it is just by the luck of the draw that these people found our page, reached out to us, helped us, offered their support and guidance from their experience of their missing loved ones. But there should be some standardization in how missing people's cases are treated by the police, and that's something that once Marshal's case settles down or comes to its conclusion, whatever ends up happening, once I'm in a better space, I want to help. I want to help make those systematic changes, because it's not on a personal level that these changes need to happen. It's systematic.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think you guys are better equipped up there to do that too. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
No, it's okay. We have people just throwing out, because you had said anywhere you can put it and would be helpful. People saying there's a DOE network in America and Canada, there's separate ones, and then they're saying on top of NamUs, Canada has their own version called NCMPUR. So maybe later on you can come back and look at the chat, and there's all different kinds of networks being thrown out there. So
yeah, we 100% will be looking through all the comments. So anything that's added, we're so thankful and appreciate any ideas, any help, and we for sure anything that goes in there we'll be looking at. And appreciate it.
And that's the same thing too with our Facebook page. We have like our Facebook page. If people post ideas on there, that's how we've gotten some ideas, and that's how we've gotten more information. Is people will throw out their information, throw out what they know, throw out their ideas, and it's really helped us kind of grow. And so if anyone thinks of anything later and this chat is closed, or it's later after tonight, feel free to jump on our page and throw some ideas out there. Message us, post them publicly. I think if you have a question or you have an idea, other people can help grow it. And that's something that I've really learned is, we have so much support out there. Everything helps.
Definitely. Thank you guys for that. George says he's going to join the page, your Facebook page, of course. In the event that Marshal would be listening to this, let's say he, maybe he was just trying to get away for a bit or trying to protect you guys from something, whatever it may be. If he is listening to this directly, what message would you guys want to make sure to get to him?
Just like for me, it's, I love you so much and I miss you.
Yeah, I same. Just if you're listening, Marsh, like, we love you. I love you. Let us know if you're safe, and like anything we can get through. Like, yep. We just want to know you're okay. If you're okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Kind of feels like you guys have already been prepared to get through everything.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we can. The biggest thing for us is, like, no matter what it is, we can figure it out, and we will. And whether that's a good outcome or a not so happy outcome, we'll figure it out. But we are going to get to our outcome. We are not giving up.
Okay, so if you're out there, Marshal, please listen and come forward. Just let everyone know you're okay. That's all they care about. And if you're someone who knows something, even if it's a tiny piece and you're thinking, this probably won't help, it's nothing. These cases always get solved by a tiny piece, because there are 1,000 tiny pieces that connect and you would never know how important what you know is until you find out what the other person knows, and all of a sudden it clusters together, and before you know it, it's solved off of something that seemed inconsequential. So
Yeah.
please come forward if you know anything, or even if you have an idea, something that we didn't bring up. The best would be, of course, to go to the police. The number's listed below. You also could go to Paige's page or the page for Marshall. You always can send things to me. Again, it doesn't really make sense to do that in lieu of the police or Paige, or the family. But if there is anyone, for whatever reason, that knows me or is familiar with the channel that isn't comfortable going to law enforcement or Paige or something, by all means, send it to me. I'll pass it along. But strongly, strongly recommended to go to the authorities and or Paige's family.
And we can all be found on Find Marshal Iwaasa, the Facebook page. We're all admins there. So any admin, you can pick any one of us out and we all talk. And we are all family.
And I did just drop in the group link itself, as well as the FAQ. I do recommend that anybody, if you have any questions, please read the FAQ first. It is a spring of information, and it may answer the question that you have. And it also may help you think of other questions to ask. So again, check that out before you reach any of the admins.
Yep, the more eyes on the case, the better. And so we appreciate so much you guys even taking the time to interview us, hear our story out. Every time we do these types of things, we're able to reach other people, and it helps so much. There is someone out there that knows something, so we just need to reach the right person or persons.
There's always somebody who knows something, always.
And regardless of how this turns out, if there, as you mentioned, if it comes to the point where either something does happen or it's kind of giving you time to do other things, I look forward to either seeing you guys or one of the families that you've worked with just standing in front of whatever your version of council is up there and really telling them that something needs to change. And hopefully, if it's because they actually care, if they want to be reelected, they actually do something. Because I've looked, for some weird reason, I've personally looked more into how many people go missing up north in Canada, probably because I want to move there, but versus down here, and it all seems like there's a disengaged like policy. Once someone goes missing, they're so quick to just treat it as a missing person, and they went missing on their own. Like no one really ever wants to look into what really happened, unless they end up on Oprah, or if they end up, well, not now, but can't say Ellen either. One of those shows. Sorry, Ellen. One of those shows, and it's really sad. Like every family matters.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like right now, we are taking every opportunity we can. If anyone has any ideas about other podcasts, other shows, whatever to reach out to, please reach out to them. Like I am always open to talking, and I would love to get the more I can spread awareness, not just for Marshall's case, but for any, like how missing persons cases are handled, the more we will. We want to do this, and we want to not only find our loved ones, but make it easier for people in the future, because this isn't okay. And yeah, we have enough fire in our family that we will. Might not be now, might be in a year or two, but it will happen. And I strongly believe there needs to be some changes.
Get that Netflix documentary.
Yeah. If anyone out there knows a Netflix producer and wants one, we have quite an interesting story. And
people behind it.
You guys.
That's how you get people behind it.
Well, and you guys know that I think we talked about it earlier. You had interviewed Ryan Shuka's mom. Like these are cases that are very similar. Like his missing case is not too far from Marshall's. We've been in contact with Heather, and there are some really weird cases in BC of missing young, healthy men that just disappear. And I don't think that's just coincidence. And so, yeah, if there is someone, we have some pretty interesting facts to share, because we have been trying to put these together, because it is strange. And my brother's case falls right in there.
Absolutely. And I was going to say this as well. Be United says that you guys are excellent advocates for your brother, and I agree. You represent him extremely well, and I know he's super proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, we try. It's difficult and it's challenging, and it doesn't get easier as time goes on. We know all the facts and all the details, but those personal parts, they still hurt. But there is nothing that we aren't afraid to talk about or afraid to address. And I think we are a good team, me and my family, to help make those changes. I strongly believe that.
Is there anything, just for the sake of thoroughness, we have all the time in the world to cover everything that is important. Is there anything that Grotto or myself didn't think to ask, or anything that you have written down that you want to make sure gets out there that could be important to the case?
I don't think so.
I mean, we covered so much.
Yeah, you guys did an awesome,
Thank you. You guys are awesome guests. I appreciate it. Like I said, you represented very well, and I think we were pretty thorough. We covered quite a bit.
Yeah, and if you guys ever have other questions, you can either reach out to us. We are more than open to come back. Any follow-up that you want, any new ideas that you have for your viewers. Like we've always said, we're open to anything. We know at this point, my brother's body is not on that mountain. And now we need to address this and look forward of where we're going now and what evidence do we need to get to the next step.
That's all. And there's a long distance between those 2 points.
Yeah.
So a lot of work ahead of you.
And if you're still hanging out here with us, pretty important. We're talking about getting as many eyeballs as possible. Please hit the like button. When you like it, it tells YouTube this is content someone likes enough to like it, and it starts putting it out to more people. So the more likes that this has, the more people that will have a chance to see it, and then it just grows and grows from there. And if you're into true crime content, particularly missing persons interviews, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I do these kind of interviews all the time. If you know anybody that has a missing loved one or something and needs help spreading awareness, you can always have them contact me on Facebook as well. And also check out Be United Missing Group. The links are below. So, Grotto, they said that we pretty much covered everything. Did you want to have anything else to add?
Nope. I think we've covered it all. And again, I think I tried to cover some of the things that I think people would be looking for the most on the FAQ, because I really think it's important. I saw a lot of questions that were answered in there, asked in chat, and I did my best to get everyone to it.
That's probably the best resource I've ever seen for missing persons. For just kind of boom, get all the basics. Good job on that. I don't know, you wrote that? Or?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a whole bunch of, I think a few of us worked on it. And it really is, because we have new people joining all the time. We want them to be able to see where we're at and then think of their ideas, think of their questions, think of their information that they might have, and kind of jump into the case with us.
It puts everyone on an even playing field and makes sure that everyone's focused in the right. It makes everything more concise. And I mean, Jason, I said, hey, I need some info on this. And first thing he did was message me that link. And I clicked on it, saw it. I looked for about 2 seconds, responded back to him. I said, this is the best thing I've ever seen on a missing. And I've never seen it before. So I'm not knocking people who haven't done it. It's such a great thing. I think that I encourage, if you know anyone who has a missing family member, to create an FAQ page just so that everyone's on the same page. And it also, if you're in a group, it helps push down the crap that gets posted. If you see in some other groups, people will be throwing out ideas that you may have seen the day before that have been discussed at length. This really helps push that down and gives people information they need, like, right now. And if they have other questions, I might answer those too. So the only thing I could say is, really, if you know someone who has a missing family member, create an FAQ page, add it to the files section, and as things progress, just keep it updated.
Yeah, I think too, like it is very important to have that. It's also hard to make that, because it changes the game, right? Like it goes from now, like, who has seen Marshall and or who has seen that missing person, and we're looking to find them, to this is now a long-term thing that we need to address frequently. Like, there's going to be enough questions that there's frequently asked questions. That sucks. That's a tough thing for any family to put together, but it has been very helpful just managing things. So I agree. I think I would suggest anyone that has a page do it. And even though it's a tough thing to do, just because, and even now we're going into kind of where it's more like we want changes and systematic things. Like, it's an evolving thing where we're no longer the beginning it was okay, he could still be there and alive in the mountains, to where okay, if he's there, he couldn't survive, to now it's okay, he's not there, we have to look at other things. Like, it's a really weird evolving, and it's new for everyone, right? I don't know anybody that's had 2 or 3 missing people. Like, if you're thrown in this world, it's like, it's crazy.
And I think there's a bit of a trade-off there, because for the amount of work you have to put in there, I'm sure as a page itself or a group itself, you probably get a lot of messages to the admins asking about those, not just about those questions, but other things as well. If you have a page set up for a missing family member, you can set up auto responses. So if you have an FAQ file, even if you have to do it offsite, like on Google Documents, you can set that up to be the auto response. So if someone reaches out to you and says, hey, was a truck burned, or hey, was, just using you as a reference, if you have a page, you can put that link in there. So if someone asks a question and you're working on this alone, if you have that FAQ section, it'll answer that question right away for them, if it's in that FAQ, of course. And it'll take a lot of the weight off your shoulders if you're managing it alone. So that's why I kept mentioning it, because I think it's just such a valuable thing to do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that.
All right, guys, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Again, you guys did amazing. Thank you so much. Brad, I want to thank you for co-hosting. You did an excellent job as well. And if there is nothing else, I think we'll end this here. And make sure you guys to check out all the links below, especially the Find Marshall page down below. I think it's Finding Marshall Iwaasa, right? I have it linked, but
Find Marshal Iwaasa.
Find Marshall Iwaasa, I'm sorry. So make sure to check it out, guys, and send her over any questions. Paige and Dawson are, like she said, completely open and ready to answer. So any tips, questions, advice, anything like that, they're ready for you. Other than that, I want to thank you all for coming and hanging out, and let's bring Marshall home.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.